My learning intention for my AIF was to learn and experiment with new video editing techniques to produce a fully edited music video that intertwined visual effects with storytelling. My main goal in this unit was to build my overall base techniques, develop my skills in storytelling, and combine the skills to create an emotive and impressive viewing experience. Throughout the unit, I noticed my minimal time management skills early on, where I had a general idea on what I wanted to do, yet I never mapped it out, leading to very spontaneous skill development and ineffective progression towards my learning intention. My interview with music video editor Jordan Orm, who has edited music videos for a multitude of artists such as Justin Bieber, as well as editing for multiple television shows, showed this to me. In this interview, I questioned him on what skills I should develop, where he mentioned studying music, storytelling, and graphic design. This was at the week 7 unit in the course, meaning I wasn't able to do lengthy research and study into areas which I hadn't considered, graphic design being something I'd completely overlooked. At this point in the unit, I realized I didn't have time to apply his advice, and decided to begin mapping out what I should do with my time so I'd be able to analyze the practicality of future events. I had decided on a calendar format, where I set up a goal to complete each week, up until I had finished the completed edit. Using a more visual setup, I was able to commit to mirroring what I wanted to do each week, and using my time in class to work to the completion of each goal. I then further developed this over the holidays, as in Progress Check 2, I noticed that I wasn't very specific with my time, making it more difficult to factor time for other work, such as the said Progress Check. Over the holidays, I designed a much more detailed itinerary, highlighting days I wouldn't be able to get anything done, and color coding based on how lenient I could be with my time to make big changes or just focus on the little things. I had responded to my struggles of my previous iterations to manage my time specifically and improve my edit and skills in a realistic time frame. Improving time also caused me to reflect on how I use my resources. The email interview with Jordan Orm showed me I hadn't utilized resources at an effective level. It taught me to consider evolving beyond my social media audience and reaching out to even wider range of perspectives than I had prior. I highlighted my use in Progress Check 2 of Instagram story functions that allow me to get more specific feedback on what I had done or changed across a small audience with a range of perspectives. What I did notice is how minimal said feedback was on impacting my learning, the polls giving feedback on what I had set as options, and the question box having a character limit leading to answers that lacked personal perspectives, depth, and broader critique, forcing a closed-minded response. I decided to adapt on this by encouraging people to leave a comment or send me a message on more platforms, in which people can give unrestricted feedback on everything they have critiques for. This also uplifted what information I took from the YouTube videos I had watched. For example, Pascal Basil's 7 tips to tell better stories through video editing video. He highlighted the importance of color grading, considering the relevance of clips, cutting based on emotion, and showing not telling. All those were criticisms I had received through the more detailed feedback I sought out. Initially, I had overlooked the importance of relevant clips and cutting for emotion, my pre-final product edits focusing on telling and then showing as well. I had researched thoroughly into color grading, as through my own personal experimentation, I noticed the impact color has on emotion, and so did more in-depth research on it, making great use of resources for that specific topic. This strategy greatly improved my knowledge of color grading in a short span of time. However, the unintentional strategy of synthesizing the resources of the video and social media feedback caused me to evolve as a storyteller entirely, going from my initial edits of tell then show into a fully fleshed out storyline with speech, for example, used for effect, not exposition. As I've progressed in how I edit, I've drastically improved in different areas, focusing on styles, effects, and themes. This is clear in my 2 edit posters, which I went edit by edit, commenting on what I had focused on, areas of growth, and what I wanted to do next. I essentially passed judgments over my past works to decide what to do next and where to improve. This was the main factor for altering my learning output over time. Initially, I had planned on making a very intensely detailed edit intertwined with storytelling. However, after a few edits, I noticed not only the time commitment, with a 50-second edit taking over 24 hours in total to produce, but also the ineffectiveness of storytelling under intense layers of colors, glitches, and scenes. This caused me to decide against depth in editing, still including portions that are deeply edited, but rather focusing on storytelling for the most part. I created a separate storytelling bubble on the poster to focus on how I told the story, why, and if it was an effective portrayal. Through retrospective analysis, I was able to make considerations on not only my time, but also the reason I was making my final product. The focus wasn't on a flashy display, but more a display of skills, and so I decided to put a focus on a story I wanted to tell in a much more subtly skillful way. My own discernment oftentimes didn't allow me to notice certain issues due to the inherent bias I would have from already understanding stories or skills, which led me to seeking feedback from others. Feedback was a strong driver for my decision making, allowing me to pass unbiased judgments from a much wider group of people. People of various skill ranges in editing giving me their thoughts on their work helped me reassess my work to improve it. For example, the responses I got from my final draft of my product from long-term editors, people that regularly watch edits and music videos, and even people that have close to no interaction with edits through social media created an environment where I was able to pinpoint weaker story beats and moments where maybe I added too much. A broad critique across skill levels was adding in a certain storyline that somewhat came out of the blue and wasn't well explored. My original intention was to build up the character's resolve through the storyline, as it is a direct connection to the final speech I include at the end. However, it acts more as a confusing few shots before going back to the original story. Given how I intertwined the storyline in my edit, removing it would mean starting over, an unrealistic choice, so I instead decided to focus on the aesthetic critiques and take on feedback going into the future of editing for me. Through my timeline of retrospection and prospection and my use of social media, the vast amounts of contrasting viewpoints allowed me to make decisions on what was achievable for my skills and for the scale of my output and where I wanted to go next. Through consistent change in feedback, I was able to improve my work while focusing on what mattered more to me and my learning intention due to the judgments from both over myself in the edit timeline and others in social media. The feedback I received from social media also helped guide my learning, as positive reception to certain editing techniques was an indicator that I had learned how to properly apply that skill, allowing me to move on to the next. Feedback from others, which I gained through both social media tools such as polls, questions and comments, and in-person discussions, provided a wide range of perspectives, with friends who have never edited before to people who have been editing for years, giving their insight on what I could improve on. This is one of the main factors that pushed me towards storytelling over skills, as many people remarked that the edits looked good, but often I couldn't properly portray a story to keep viewers invested, highlighting storytelling as an area for growth. I also used feedback from Jordan Orm, the music video editor I previously mentioned, to direct me more towards both storytelling components and reconsidering why I edit. The questions I asked him surrounding his desire for editing and how to tell better stories directly impacted my final product, as I created something not just to tell a story to others, but also for something for me to watch. He told me he edits so that he can be able to be the first person to watch the final piece, something I had never considered, and implanted the idea of creating something for me to watch as well, which aided me in my learning, as I realized as cool as flashy edits are, a good story with a good message is something I would much rather watch now, 5, and even 10 years from now. The strategies I used as a response to my feedback also supported my learning, choosing to adapt prior strategies such as mapping out my time and combining retrospection with others' insights to recognize skill discrepancies and how to focus on them going forward. This forced me to push my learning into certain directions until I had mastered my weaknesses, either through experimentation, online tutorials, or a mix of the two. My edit timeline shows this, where I have a clear path for experimentation, which often incorporated research to either be a fundamental of a longer chain or to enhance the work of my experimentation. This was especially helpful during my larger struggle in losing a multitude of preset features because the app I was using, CapCut, began putting them behind a monthly subscription, which I wasn't able to afford for a period of time. Through my own method of experimentation off of research, I had inadvertently learned how an effect worked and what it did. This was a new strategy I developed where I analyzed the makeup of an effect and learned to recreate it for free, creating a much deeper understanding on how to edit, but also their impact on the audience. Each reconstruction made me consider what impact it has on the audience, either as a distraction, allowing for a clean transition, or a non-spoken symbol of emotion. This self-made understanding of storytelling through effects specifically made my learning much deeper, more efficient, and drove me towards making use of those skills by shifting to a story-based focus. Overall, strategies of learning experimentation and learning from others provided me the skills required to deal with setbacks, allowing me to grow under struggle and develop my learning intention, deepening in how I viewed the message of my music video personally.